Yeah, we are supposed to have Rahman, and maybe we should give him a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, for him to join us.
That's fine, no problem at all.
Yeah. So this
How
is
is the
for
weather like today?
you said?
How is the weather today?
Yeah, the weather is actually good. It's rainy season in Nigeria, so it has been raining. Yeah. So I don't know. This is 4 minutes after 10. Maybe when it is 7 minutes after 10, we can just start. Then Rahman can join us later.
No problem, that's fine.
Yeah.
Will you attend the festival in person?
Yes, I will.
Will you attend the festival in person
Yes, I will.
next
I will.
week?
Yes,
How
inshallah.
many people are coming? Do you know?
I don't know. I think registration is still on. So I think we are targeting 300 to 400 people.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Is it mainly university students who attend these festivals, or do you get older people as well?
Yeah, we get older people as well. People from everywhere, students, non-students, a lot of people come for people from all calibers of life. Yes.
That is nice.
Yes. But then I think because our organization is mainly it's led by young people, so we have much more young people attending the festival than older people. Yes.
Yes. It's good to include young people. It's often a challenge to bring young people on board because they're busy, they're doing multiple jobs. So to get young people, young energy, the youth on board to attend stuff like that is really important.
Yes, I think it's very important. I think that's why because we in northern Nigeria where we are, our organization, the Poetic Wednesdays, it is the largest youth-led literary organization. So that's why most of the youth actually identify with us because we understand each other more. We know each other's problems. So I think that is why it is easier for us to pull young people.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And sorry, we did not do introductions. So my name is Khawla. What's your name?
Oh, sorry. My name is Abdul Jalal.
Abdul Jalal. Nice to
Yes.
meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Yeah.
What do you do, Abdul Jalal? Are you a student? Have you graduated?
Yeah, I've graduated. I am currently a primary school teacher. So
Are you?
yeah, I basically teach kids.
That's amazing. It's the best job to be a primary school teacher. I used to
Yeah.
do a lot of education research in primary schools, and I have a lot of admiration for primary school teachers. I think this job that you do is the most important job of our times.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. And like you said, it's like that because in Nigeria, it's a job that because of the pay is very, very low. So it's more of like almost every primary school teacher in Nigeria is sacrificing a lot of things to be a teacher because number one, you have to find a lot of side hustles so that you'll be able to fend for yourself because of how the pay is. So you see, but it's something that I love doing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
You will not believe it, but it's the same thing here in the UK. To be a primary school teacher means you have to do lots of sacrifices. The pay is very low. Governments are not interested in education. They do not invest in schools and the future of children. So it's sad to see this happening in lots of places around the world, but it is exactly for that reason why primary education is the most important job of our times.
Yes, yes, it is because I used to tell my colleagues that I don't think there is anything on earth that is as beautiful as meeting kids that are unlettered. You meet kids that can't read and write, and then you are able to teach them, to make them be able to read and write. I don't think there is anything as beautiful as that.
Absolutely. And then maybe they start
Yes,
writing poetry.
yes, yes, yes. So because how it works is because I'm a poet. So sometimes I read poems for the kids. I try to teach them how to, well, as soon as they learn how to read and write, I try to teach them how to read poetry. And it's something that they really like.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so this is 10 minutes after 10, and Rahman is not here yet. I am sure that the team will reach out to him. So I don't know. Maybe should we just start so that he would meet us later? And
Yeah, we can start. Yes.
okay, thank you very. So good morning once again, Khawla.
Good morning, Abdul Jalal.
So I'll just dive right into the questions because I have a lot of questions, and I think we have 1 hour to do this. So I would really love to ask this first. So how has been displaced from Palestine shaped the way you write and the themes you explore in your poetry? Because you know how sometimes we would be busy writing one thing, and then something will happen to us and it will just change everything about our writing, and we just have to move and say, okay, this is the right thing to write. So how has that changed your writing?
That's a really important question and a timely question, I have to say. So, if you allow me first to start by saying thank you to you and to all the organizing committee for inviting me to this really important festival on poetry in times of crisis. I think all of us, regardless of whether we're interested in poetry or not, all of us should be interested in the role of language in times of crisis. And the question that you've just asked about how do we use language to catch up with the changes in our lives is a really important thing. We are living in times of immense suffering. You describe these times as times of crisis. This immense suffering is unfolding in front of our eyes. It's not like we're talking about a historic moment and we're grieving it and it has stopped and we move on. We're constantly bombarded by images of suffering and pain from different parts of the world. Most of my writing speaks to this feeling of being in constant grief. And it's a type of grief which is not just individual. I am a Palestinian academic. I lived in Gaza City for 14 years. I am a third generation Palestinian refugee. All my family are still in Gaza. So the idea of suffering and grief for me has been a constant life feature for the past 2 years. But I'm sure that this kind of suffering is not exclusively relevant to the Palestinians. It also applies to lots of other suffering people in the world, including in Sudan, in Congo, and all those who witness the suffering in the world. How do we catch up with all of that suffering? That is a really difficult question to ask because the minute you write something, the world will have already changed. And I think we, as authors and writers and people who bear witness, we need to stand up to the challenge of documenting all of these things and not to be bothered by the fact that by the time we finish writing, the world will have changed. Because the that writing is still important. That writing is an act of documenting what's happening now. And we keep writing to document what's happening next. I like to mention the word time. So the word time is featured in the title of your festival. Time
Yes.
here is an altered thing. It's not the normal time. It's not the normal time measured in minutes and hours and years. We're living with time which is very entangled. Historical injustices with ongoing injustices and future injustices. And it's all wrapped up together. So, as authors, we are challenged by this idea of time. What are we writing about? Are we writing about the explosions that happened this morning? Or do we write about the massacres that happened yesterday? Or do we talk about the evacuation orders of tomorrow? Or do we talk about all of that together? So I think language is being really challenged in times of crisis. Language is challenged by the changing dimension of time. And it feels like we're constantly trying to catch up. And I think there is nothing wrong with that. We need to be clear on the idea that we are dealing with an altered dimension of time. And it is our job as poets, as writers, as educators to try and document as much as we can the suffering that we're witnessing around us. And we shouldn't be very much concerned about whether or not we are constantly writing for the now, because the now is altered. The now is yesterday, the now is now, and the now is tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you very, very much. Because I think, like you said, it's a common thing with where the world is right now. Almost everyone is going through one crisis or another, and with the fact that as Nigerians, if you go on Twitter, you will see that there are a lot of Nigerians that identify with with Palestinians. They are always talking about the suffering because it's a global village right now. Everyone is seeing it. We read the news every day. We see the videos every day, and sometimes it hurts that some of us. Sometimes it hurts that some of us cannot do anything more than to just write about it or to just vent about it on social media.
Yeah.
So the next question I would love to ask is, in times of crisis, do you find poetry as a tool of survival, resistance, or healing?
Is poetry a source of resistance and healing? It is both. It is resistance and healing, and it is also a tool to say we exist, a tool to say we witness, a tool to say that we will continue to languish the pain and the suffering and the brokenness of the world. Yes, we're constantly bombarded by images of death and suffering from Gaza. And yes, we are all entangled in an idea of collective trauma. And I don't use the word trauma as a psychological, pathological disease. I talk about trauma here as a feature of our life today. Wherever you look, people are traumatized. Wherever you look, people are feeling helpless. People are feeling that evil is unstoppable. People are feeling that mercy is no longer a thing that can exist on this planet. And in response to all of that, we need anti colonial scholars, we need anti colonial educators, and anti colonial poets to talk about now and also to imagine an alternative world. And this is our response to the unstoppable evil. We respond to the unstoppable evil, to the unstoppable flow of bombs with the words of wisdom, the words of humanity, the words of rights, the words of poetry. And as we respond to all of that with our words do constitute a form of resistance, but it's also a form of rebuilding a different world. We need to imagine a different world in order to survive what we are living. There is no other alternative. We either sink in despair and helplessness, and we either and do nothing. And we live our lives miserable and depressed for the rest of our lives, disconnected from politics, disconnected from everything, or stand up and fight for our time on this planet, for the lives that we're living through imagining a different world. So, as you see, what we're doing with our words is we're doing both. We're doing resistance and we're doing healing. We're responding to all this pain by asserting our right to a voice and agency and poetry. And at the same time, we are rebuilding ourselves and imagining a new world. I know lots of people might hear me and say, what healing are you talking about? There's so many wounds that they cannot be healed. My response to that is, we are responsible for trying, and we're not responsible for the outcome. We cannot guarantee that there will ever be healing in the world. We know that. But that doesn't mean that we stop attempting to heal. We might never realize justice for Palestine and justice for the Palestinian people in Gaza, but that doesn't mean that we stop talking about Gaza and stop talking about Palestine. And this is why poetry is really important, to resist, to heal, to assert your right to life and to living, and to use your voice and your words to say, I witness, I see, I document, and I remember. And I think the word remember is really important. And it takes us again to the idea of time. What we do with our poetry is we write about the now, which is altered. Now is yesterday, and now is now, and now is tomorrow. And we're documenting that. And for the reason we are documenting that, so we do not forget. And the work of memory is really important. And as we are remembering, we are resisting the colonial erasure of our suffering and of our history.
All right. Thank you very much, Khawla. That was a beautiful response. So, so I'd love to really know this. Do you think poetry or writing generally can serve as a home or place of belonging when the physical homeland is taken away? Like you.
Can poetry be a home? Maybe it is a home for the homeless, a refuge for the stateless. Maybe, but it's a very vulnerable and fragile home. It's not a physical home. Poetry becomes a state of being. Poetry becomes a state of saying, this is how I am responding to being with no home. Maybe it's a response to the lack of home rather than a home. We need a home and we need a land and we need to go back to our homes and reclaim our lands. Poetry cannot replace that, but poetry is a tool to mourn the land and to mourn the loss of homes. Poetry is a tool to remember what is lost and what is broken. I don't think it is a home in itself, but it is a form of responding to the loss of home. Or when you're looking at your home and your home is bombed in front of your eyes, what do you say? I'm not sure anybody or everybody can easily respond to the bombardment of their homes by writing a poem. But having a poem about seeing your home bombed is a form of, yes, that's exactly how I felt. And that is the kind of conversation that I have with my family in Gaza. When they're constantly under bombs and being starved, the idea of writing poetry for them is a luxury. It's nearly impossible for them to sit down with the luxury of having a piece and paper to actually language the pain and the suffering. For me, as a genocide witness, witnessing that suffering, I have that luxury of sitting with a pen and a paper or holding my phone and then screaming words on the screen to document the loss of home, to document the broken walls of what was once upon a time a family house. Will this poem or this collection of poetry ever be a home for the homeless, the stateless, the starved, the genocided? No. But that poetry collection is a voice.
Um, Thank you very much. That was very profound. Um, so I think this question is an extension of the previous question, and I know how hard it is to even talk about these things to be able to put words to all the things that are happening. But I would really love to know, how do you translate the grief and trauma of exile into poetry without, or into any form of writing without losing hope?
It took me nearly 4 months since the start of the genocide in Gaza to be able to find a voice. So when things started in Gaza, I was stunned into silence. I wasn't able to put words to translate grief or trauma. And I think my initial reaction to the unfolding genocide in Gaza was words cannot change anything. I can't do anything. And I remained silent for the first 4 months. Silent in terms of poetry. I continued to share news and repost news and share videos and all of that, but I could not produce words of my own. I could not translate my grief or my trauma into words. And then I realized that these 4 months were probably the worst 4 months for me because I felt completely voiceless. I felt completely erased because I was silent. And I was silent because I was stunned into pain that I felt there are no words to describe what's happening. Even spokespeople from the United Nations organizations operating in Gaza started saying things to the news reporters about how things are beyond words. In fact, the head of the WHO, the World Health Organization, said there are no words left. So to actually say there are no words left is a statement of despair, is a statement of we cannot put words to translate what we are witnessing. Now, what we know about pain and suffering and genocides is that they destroy language. What we know about genocides is that they kill language. And as poets, we cannot settle with the idea that language is killed and that's it, there is nothing that can be done. And this is our fight as people who respond with words. Our fight is to say, genocides kill language, but we have to restore language. We have to save language. To say there are no words left means to accept alienation, isolation, and despair. To say it is undescribable means to admit that the Palestinian suffering can sink in erasure and silence. And it is exactly for that reason that words have to be dug. And the metaphor of digging words is a really exhausting metaphor, but this is exactly how it feels for me. It feels like I am constantly digging words to translate grief and trauma. So, what I'm trying to say is it's not easy to put words to translate grief and trauma, but it becomes a political and ethical responsibility for everyone who calls themselves poets or educators or intellectuals or writers. It is upon us to language the pain and the suffering in the world, because this language is important to create the public expression of pain. And through creating the public expression of pain, we are resisting and we're also imagining a different world.
Hi.
Hello. I think the I can't see myself, and yes, I can see you now. You're back, but I can't see myself.
Yes, I don't know what is going on. I can't see you too. I can't see you, but
Let me play with the camera and see if that
okay.
changes
Okay.
anything.
I don't know if it's the network or something, but I still can't see.
No, I can't see myself as well. Do you want me to? No, you're recording. I can't leave and come back.
Um, okay, I don't know. Um, Sorry. Give me a few seconds. Let me confirm if we can leave and come back.
That's fine.
So I was just informed that you can leave. So just leave and come back. Let's see if the
No.
network.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. That's working. That's good.
Okay. 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 That's great.
I don't know. Do you want us to repeat the last question, or was that all right? You disappeared midway through my response.
Yeah. I think it was the network. Sorry. I was asking how you translate the grief and the trauma of exile into poetry without losing hope. That was the question.
Um, Translating grief and trauma into poetry is difficult. I have to say that when the genocide in Gaza started, I spent probably the first 4 months without being able to write a single poem about what's happening. I was constantly sharing videos, constantly reposting news from Gaza, but I struggled with my response. I wasn't able to translate trauma and grief into poetry. Um, but then I realized that these 4 months were actually the hardest months for me as an educator, an intellectual, and a writer because I wasn't writing. I learned from other authors who documented other colonial struggles that sometimes the madness of the world forces you into poetry. Poetry isn't always an exercise of talking about trees and flowers and lakes around you, but poetry is also a form of documenting your madness, documenting the madness of the world and the madness of responding to the madness of the world. And this is really important because I realized that through writing about grief and trauma, through documenting what's happening in Gaza, I am making Gaza the topic and the subject for grief. Now, we live in a world where you do not mourn anyone. You have to mourn some people. Other people are outside the frame of mourning. And the Palestinian people have been pushed outside the frame of mourning and grief. And poetry is really important to bring the Palestinian people into the frame of grieving, to say these people are human beings who deserve our feelings, they deserve to be mourned, they deserve our words of grief. So poetry becomes a source of resisting the erasure of the Palestinian people as people and as human beings. So, translating trauma and grief is difficult. And as we said in the previous question, it becomes an act of resistance against the colonial erasure and the silence that we often have as a result of being shocked. We're shocked. What do we say? And to say, I am shocked and I can't say anything, and to stay in that state of I can't say anything, pushes you further into a space of alienation and isolation. So it doesn't help. I am surrounded by lots of people who, with all the goodwill in the world, say to me, there are no words left. And my response to them, we say the words all over again. Because we cannot say there are no more words left and leave Gaza to be alienated in front of our eyes and stay silent. We have to keep saying the words, even if we end up repeating ourselves. That is really important. Now, you mentioned something about the idea of hope and losing hope or not losing hope.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I am not sure hope is the right word. I don't think there is any hope. There is no hope in Gaza. There is no hope for Palestine. What is important is to hold on to faith and not hope. Faith means that you understand that we live in testing times, and guided by your principles of faith, your response is you're responding by the goodness that your faith is dictating you to work with. So there is no hope. And it looks like Gaza is going to be completely annihilated in front of our eyes. It's all unstoppable. Hope is a tricky thing. Hope looks like a bird with feathers that is running away, that is flying away from us. I have no hope, but I have faith. And I write with faith. And faith is important because faith is anchored in now and in the future. Faith is giving you a framework for how to live as a decent human being, how to live now, and how to build for tomorrow. And I think poetry can be a space of putting that faith into words, restoring faith in humanity, restoring faith in goodness, restoring faith in our ability as good human beings to fight this evil. So for me, hope is not the word, faith is the word. And faith is much more stronger than hope, because there are days when we're completely hopeless. And to be honest, for the past 2 years, I have been completely hopeless. I woke up this morning to the news that 1 million people in Gaza City have been ordered to evacuate. Evacuation is the wrong word. They are forced to leave their homes, so their lands are ethnically cleansed. There is no hope when you're looking at that. There is no hope when Israel is throwing leaflets of the maps of our land, and our land is cut into squares, and all the squares are red, and people are pushed from one square into another, and they're being bombed as they move from one square into another. If they stay in the red square, they're killed. If they move from the red square, they are killed on the way as they're moving. There is no hope. And as a witness poet, when you're looking at all of that, you're not working with hope. There is no hope. But also, you cannot give up to despair and say, there are no words, what's going on? It's mass killing, it's mass murder, it's all unstoppable. Your job is to languish what is going on around you, holding on to your faith as a good, decent human being, and also doing your part in this world. Our job as individuals is to do our part in the big project of humanity. We cannot fix humanity. But what we can is do our part in this big humanity project. And I have a deep belief in the idea that poetry can be a really useful part in that humanity project. Because poetry touches the heart before it touches the mind. And it reaches a people
Yes.
than, say, normal writing, which is quite dense and heavy and intellectual. Poetry is for everyone and for the everyday. And for that reason, it has that power of contributing to this big project of humanity.
Um, thank you very much, Khawla. When you mentioned doing our parts as writers, as poets, I remember, I can't remember the exact story, but I remember this story that I've read about a certain house that was on fire, and there was this thought that was bringing water into the house, the house that was on fire, and someone saw him and told him that, do you think this water is going to quench this fire? And he said, no, it's not going to do it, but I am simply trying to do my part. And I think that is exactly what you
Exactly.
are doing as a poet, and that's very, very important, because at the end of the day, if everyone sits down and says, oh, there is nothing I can be able to do, then it becomes worse, because silence is a statement itself. So thank you very much.
Exactly.
And this brings me
You're very
directly to the next question I'd love to ask. So what do you think poetry can achieve that politics, activism, or journalism cannot, in telling the Palestinian story?
What poetry can achieve is poetry is politics and poetry is activism. I think it's important to challenge the divide between poetry and politics and activism. I understand your question about what politics cannot achieve. There are different types of politics. There is the mainstream politics, the governments and the people who rule the world. But there is also the politics of the every person in society. There is the grassroots form of politics. And poetry speaks to that. Poetry speaks to the public. Poetry speaks to the public opinion. It shapes public opinion. Poetry is a form of creating a world and shaping a world. And it's for that reason that poets are often attacked, because poetry has a power to shape public opinion. Poetry has a role in contributing to politics and contributing to activism. So this is not only applicable to the Palestinian case. If you look at almost all anti-colonial struggles on the planet, and if you look at the history of anti-colonial struggles, poetry has always played a role. And poetry cannot be separated from politics and activism. What poetry does is that it can reach out to more people. And through that reaching out, the outreach, the impact, going out to the everyday, to the normal person, the average citizen, if you like, you are bringing more people to the sphere of politics. Because we live in a world where it's very easy to give up and to despair and to lose interest in politics, because the world is broken and politicians don't care about the suffering of the average human being. So we end up with this with two scenarios here. One scenario is for the average citizen to say, the world is too broken and I can't do anything. And as a result, they don't vote, they don't engage in politics, they don't use the word politics at all. So there is one scenario here. And a lot of people are stuck in that phase. Being stuck in that phase is not good. It's actually a state of helplessness. We often talk about it as being a passive citizen who doesn't care about the politics of the world. It's not that the citizen is passive or the citizen doesn't care. It is that in most cases, the citizen feels helpless, feels that they can't do anything about it. The other scenario is the complete opposite, and that's where poetry comes in. The other scenario is for the everyday citizen to engage in discussions around suffering and coloniality and injustice and apartheid and genocide. And the easiest way to get into these discussions is through poetry, because poetry speaks to the everyday citizen. Poetry is not exclusively for the intellectual elite. And through understanding the role of poetry in this way, we link poetry to politics, reaching out to more people, raising awareness about the brokenness of the world, and also taking on more people to talk about the public expression of pain. And as a result, also poetry becomes a form of activism. It's a creative form of activism and a creative and transformative form of engaging with politics.
Khawla. and and again, that was a very profound response. So I would love to know this. So how do you handle the tension between writing for your own people and writing for a global audience? Because as it is today, the 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 genocide in Gaza is something that is already global. But then we can't
Yeah.
we really cannot compare how the Palestinians read whatever it is people from their place, people like you write, and people like us that are not directly affected by the genocide. So how do you balance the tension? How do you do it?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily call it attention. I would probably refer to it as a case of prioritizing your activism at the moment. When I started writing poetry, one of the challenges for me was whether or not I should write in English. Should I write in English or should I write in Arabic, my mother tongue? And if I write in Arabic, I am talking to my own people. I am telling my own people, hello, my own people. I am grieving with you and I am witnessing you, and I cannot live my life while seeing you going through all of that. So there is one option to embrace my mother tongue and to write in Arabic for my people and for every Arabic speaking individual around the world. There is one priority here. The other priority is to write to a global audience. And I think that's why I did not see this as tension when I made a decision that I am not going to write in Arabic, I'm going to write in English, and there are certain things that I will translate into Arabic. Most of the poems that I write in English are translated by people in Gaza in Arabic. And I know primary
Okay.
school teachers in Gaza who actually teach my poetry in schools. They translate the poem, they show them the poem in Arabic, in English, and then the children translate it into Arabic. And through doing that, and through the power of education in a tent or under a tree, words can actually reach my own people. When you're witnessing people under erasure, the priority for me and for everyone is to scream, stop the genocide globally. And this form of poetry that I write is a poetry of screaming, stop the genocide to the global audience around the world. And if you look at the global movement for justice and peace in Palestine, it is a movement that knows no boundaries. It's a global movement. And whether we like English or not, English is a colonial language. But in the case of this global movement for justice and peace in Palestine, this colonial language becomes the language of expressing solidarity and the language of expressing pain. So I think I'd rather not refer to this as a tension because my people and the global audience are not at a position, they're not at odds with each other. We all want the mass killing to stop. We all want justice to be realized. It's a question of what do you prioritize when the bombs are falling? And the priority is not to say to the person who's running from the bombs, wait, I've got a poem for you, because they have no time for the poem. The priority is to
Yes.
speak to those who are watching the poems being dropped. The priority is to speak to countries where these where these bombs are being manufactured. I live in a part of the world where the bombs that drop on Gaza are being manufactured. My priority
Yes.
at the moment is to speak to people around me and to say, hey, the bombs are being manufactured here and they're being dropped there. What are we doing? And instead of screaming in everyday language to sort of say, what are you doing? Poetry becomes an activist voice that speaks to the heart that says, in a poetic form, will the child who lost their legs grow their legs back? Who sent the poems? Sorry, who sent the bombs? And I actually have a poem on that as a really good example. And I really like your question about global audience and your own people. The poem is called Grow Back. And this is a poem that demonstrates that example. When you're screaming to people around the world, stop making bombs, stop transferring bombs, stop shipping bombs, stop paying for bombs, boycott companies that are complicit in the genocide in Gaza, instead of screaming that, and people will go that, what you can do is you can actually read a poem. And the poem speaks louder than the loudest of any scream. So let's do this poem. It's called Grow Back. Will
Okay.
my legs grow back? Asks a crying child in Gaza. Will my legs grow back? Asks a crying child in Gaza, with fear on his face and sadness in his eyes, asking again, looking at me, searching for lost hope, a promise of advanced medicine, a miracle. And I lose my eye contact. My cheerful voice breaks down. I see it shattered on the sandy road under the scorching sun. I look at the amputated legs, hiding my face away. If only limbs can grow back. I spot a football outside a tent. How can I hide this thing? I look at my legs, his amputated legs. I look at the sky, the buzzing drones. How far have the bombs traveled? How far have the bombs traveled? Who sent them? Who developed them? Who paid for them? And the world becomes a violent web. And now you and you and you and you and you have to respond. Will his legs grow back?
Um, that was a heartbreakingly beautiful poem. Thank you very much, Khawla. Thank you very much. So I was just informed that I am supposed to end this by between 10:50 and 5. But um I have this question that I would really love to ask before it is 10:55. Um so if your poetry could carry one message, just one message to future generations of Palestinians, what would it be?
If my poetry would carry one message, I would say we need to struggle together. That's my message. We need to struggle together. And please allow me to tell you this message in a poem.
Okay,
Treat it as my poetic message.
okay. Go
The
ahead.
poem
Go
is
ahead.
called Past Tense. Past tense. One day that is not here yet, we will use the past tense, announcing the fall of this evil. We shall teach our children how humanity survived, how our memory, history, language, order, and hope had miraculously made it through all the traveling bombs. And we shall hold them dear and hold them tight. One day, the past tense of the very far future that speaks of this present shall become victorious. Until we write in the past tense, we sit in the present, struggling together. In compassion against the forced amnesia, we struggled together. We struggled together, some of us shall say, with the heaviest use and the hardest use of the past tense. There is poetry in times of crisis. Poetry is a statement and a practice of struggling together. Times of crisis are not just normal times. They're times where the past, the present, and the future are all mixed up together. And the message is we have to fight this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very, very much, Khawla. I would love to have more of this conversation. I still have more questions I would have loved to ask, but it's already time, and thank you very much. That's all I am going to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abdul Jalal. And thank you to everyone for organizing this. It's an honor and a pleasure to be part of your festival. I hope the words reach out as many writers as possible, and I hope that we will continue writing. All the best of luck with your festival, and please do stay in touch.
We will, inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you, Abdul Jalal.
Thank you very
Bye
much,
bye.
Khawla. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.